Hello, welcome. Celeste Cuffey here of Life Empowered Consulting Services, where our mission is to reach, empower, and motivate others to access and utilize their God given, their natural, their inherent talents and skills, building better families, companies, and communities worldwide. Thank you so much for joining me on today's podcast. Well, I have to tell you, we have an amazing, fantastic, fantabulous, all of the positive adjectives. That is who we have with us on today. Her name is Miss Erica Gummany. She is the Client Relations Manager of Direct Path Health, as well as the owner of Pivotal
Pivotal Point.
Pivotal Point.
Mm-hmm.
And she is a future published author. I wanted to make sure I got all of that right. Quite fantastic individual that we have with us on today. Thank you so much for joining us, Erica.
Thank you so much for having me this morning.
I know that for me, I've been just super excited to have you for several reasons. One of them specifically was, as we're on this journey to the Entrepreneur and You conference, you were one of the speakers recently. And I remember after the conference, I met with a colleague and they talked about how impactful your presentation was and how even that day it was funny. We were talking about it and she started to cry. She said, I don't know why the story just made me cry. And it was just the sweetest thing. Sometimes we just don't realize the impact that we have when we're really just sharing our own truth and our own story. But I remember the story. You talked a little bit about Veggie Tales. Can you tell us that story again?
Sure. So I have two babies that are now 20 and 18, but they're still my babies. And we used to love watching Veggie Tales with them when they were little. And sometimes the simplest stories are the ones that stick with you the longest. And There was a little movie, a little show, whatever you call it, called The Snoodle's Tale. And it's a story about a little snoodle, kind of like a Dr. Seuss vibe. And it's about this little snoodle that's born and kind of goes through his journey in life and starts to experience people that aren't so nice to him.
Mm-hmm.
So when he's born, he has this little backpack, and in it are, you had said, God-given, are these God-given gifts that he has. So there's like a little musical instrument and some paintbrushes and different things like that kind of God had given him as a gift to move along with in his life. And then as he started to open up these gifts, people would make fun of him and say, oh, you're no good at music, you're no good at art. And they would draw pictures of him and make fun of him. And he would put these negative things in his backpack. And it was the story of him kind of going through his little life and then kind of running away and having a kind of an interaction with God, and how God said, none of these things are true about you. Those are all lies. And he unpacked those things and showed him who he really was. And it just stuck with me all these years later. And I think that that's a journey that a lot of us are on, is uncovering the truth about who we are and removing the lies about things that were either told to us or that we believed. And, that's the beauty of God's mercy and his grace over our lives, is that we can find out who we really are and just in how he made us. So
Absolutely.
It was really fun to share it in that context, share that story.
Yeah. So it was definitely amazing. But right away, two questions pop. I'm going to try to not forget the second one, but I want to ask you the first one, which is, right now, your role is a client relations manager. So what lies do you feel like you had to overcome so that you could be the best, not only as the relationship manager, but also as the owner of Pivotal Point?
Yeah, I think for me, something that I have always struggled with is I'm hard on myself, and I'm never content with where I'm at. There's always a need for more and a need for more fulfillment, like feeling like I haven't arrived yet. And so I made some changes in my career within the last year or so, and it was a tough decision to move companies. And I have a lot of different ideas of things that I want to do. And so I think one of the lies that I tell myself is, Are you sure you're making the right decision? This job isn't as big of a title as what you should be doing. I should all over myself a lot, as that saying goes.
Mhm,
So I think one of the lies that a lot of us believe is that being a leader means that you have a certain title. And
mhm,
that's not really true, because I think that we all have different gifts, and that there is a journey that we're on depending on the different parts of our life.
mhm,
And our culture is certainly all about um, kind of competition and arriving and
mhm,
awards
mhm,
and feeling. I think there's a lot of us that can resonate with the fact that we're like, well, if I don't have the title she does or he does, so I must not have arrived yet. And that's just, none of that is true. And I
mhm.
think that there's a confidence of knowing that you're where you're meant to be at the time, and to be in alignment in the moment, and knowing, like, the discernment in your soul of listening to that. So that's the hard part, isn't it? Because we have so many voices in our head. So what is discernment? How do you
Absolutely.
know?
Yeah, yeah. That's so funny. I just asked that question. We were doing Bible study a few weeks ago, and I kind of said, "How do you know it's you
Mm-hmm.
versus, the Spirit of God?" And it's just
Mm-hmm.
something to really think about. But you said something else in there that I wanted to ask you about, which was the competition. I
Mm-hmm.
absolutely believe, and I blame the world for this. I think that we've been taught to be competitive against
Mm-hmm.
our brother, our sister, because of the titles, because of the raises, because of, companies versus companies. We want to take over the world and step on the little man, quote unquote.
Mm-hmm.
And there's so much of that. But how have you been able to navigate recognizing that your only real competition is you, right?
Mm-hmm.
In the world that is full of that.
Yeah. I think for me, a lot of the competition came from, they say, when you think about Facebook or fake book, you're comparing your reality to a facade that's presented. And I know
Mhm.
friends who post certain things on Facebook, but they don't post everything on Facebook, right? we're not
Absolutely.
we're not posting everything. So I think part of it was, I remember I joined a women's organization probably 13 years ago, so I was pretty relatively early on in my career. And I used to look at these women, these high-powered executive women in our
Mhm,
community,
mhm,
and think, oh my gosh, oh, they're so much better than me. Oh, if only I could be like them. If only I could look like them, or
mhm,
act like them,
mhm,
or have their experience, or whatever. And then when I get to know them, they're just like me. They're no
mhm,
different than me. They
mhm,
struggle with the same insecurities, the same voices. I remember one woman who is not in the community anymore, but she was a very high powered um, chief legal counsel at a really prominent company here in southeastern Wisconsin. And she was amazing to me. She just had this,
mhm,
like, really cool life, and she was just so cool. And we kind of became friends. And I had asked her in a conversation once, I said, what do you regret? And she said, I regret that I made it look easy, and that
mm,
I wasn't honest about, sometimes I didn't sleep,
mhm,
and sometimes I, you know, didn't feed my kids healthy, whatever she said, like,
mhm, mhm,
she didn't tell the truth, because I think in that competition is a scarcity mentality.
mhm,
And I think that what we're seeing in our world right now, as we're starting to lift the rocks of the lies in our culture, and seeing how certain people have power and other people are prevented from getting all the same resources and same um, just future opportunities that everybody
opportunities,
else
yeah,
has. It's because of lack, and it's because
mhm,
of scarcity, and it's like, it's mine, I can't give you
mhm,
any of it, it's mine. And that's a shame. So I think that I've overcome it by getting to know people and realizing I'm just as good as anybody else.
mhm,
Um, and my ability, I think God's gift to me, it's through me, is I'm very vulnerable and honest about myself. So I
mhm,
can I can tell the truth of what I'm experiencing, which opens up the freedom for other people to
mhm,
feel the same way. And I think that we're entering into a world that's a little bit different like that, thanks to people like Brene Brown,
mhm,
who have given us new words like vulnerability to speak about it in a powerful way that doesn't make us feel weak.
mhm, absolutely. And I used to say time, tears are a sign of strength.
Mm-hmm.
And I always equated it to, women who will be going through labor and they're crying, but they're still going through the labor. And
Yeah.
so some of the things that are perceived as weaknesses are really, those are outward signs of the strength that we actually have to
Mhm.
exude and push out in order to accomplish whatever that end goal is.
Yep.
So I think that that is so true, just in terms of making it look easy. But you know what else I found though? I have found that when you are a certain place, like you are Erica, you are
Mhm.
an author, you are a business owner, and you work with another company, it doesn't matter if you tell them the hardships. A lot of people don't even see it because they're like,
Yep.
you know, that's
Yep.
Erica. She can do it. So it's not
Yep.
that you made it look easy, but because of their perception of you,
Mhm.
um, even the hardships they think were easy. You know what I
Right.
mean?
Yeah, for
And so
sure.
it's interesting to kind of navigate through that. How do you get people, especially being vulnerable, how do you get people to really see the real you?
Hmm. I've learned that not everybody gets to see the real me,
Mm.
if that makes sense.
Hmm.
I've learned a lot about boundaries.
Hmm.
Um, I grew up I grew up with we've all had issues. I'm not
Hmm.
going to get into the whole story, but um, I've learned a lot in the last few years about narcissism and codependency,
Hmm.
and realized when I used to hear the word people pleaser, I'd be like, I'm not a people pleaser. I
Hmm.
say no, I don't. But I realized I kind of was a people pleaser in the sense that I would want people to like me,
Hmm.
and I would say yes when I meant no. Um, I would change my opinions. I would shrink back, and I think
Hmm.
I think and 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 sometimes I would overshare about myself with people, and
Hmm.
especially if I my joke is this: if I'm around there's a particular personality, and it tends to be a woman for me, a aggressive woman who's a narcissist. Okay, I don't know if it's like a person that represents my mom spiritually. I'm not sure what it is, but
Hmm.
when I'm around somebody like that, I become very codependent and almost submitting,
Hmm.
kind of like a dog does. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? Like when
Hmm.
when a dog is around somebody like that, a dog tends to like lay on their back and
Hmm.
submit. And that I didn't realize until I had worked for a particular woman and learned that. And it was such a
Hmm.
gift, because
Hmm.
sometimes our hardest experiences are our best gifts.
Yeah,
And I
yeah.
was like, aha. So now I'm very careful when I feel myself getting triggered into that stuff, that I put my boundaries up, and I'm very careful about
Hmm.
about what I do, and what I speak about my truth. So
Hmm.
that's part of it, is just having good boundaries. And another part is just listening to the Holy Spirit. Is
Hmm.
there's been so many times when I have said, like when you and I first met, Celeste, it was like,
Hmm.
oh, you know what I mean? We like fell in love in seconds,
Yes, yes.
and we were both sharing these stories that were like, wow, we
Yeah,
both left
yeah,
out of there with like goosebumps. It's like, so if you listen to the Spirit, when He puts
yeah.
someone in your path that it's time to share something. So I try to be mindful of that, and I just think, this journey that I'm on right now, in this particular job that I'm on, I'm like, boy, God, what are we here for?
Hmm.
Who are we meeting? What are we
Hmm.
doing? What's the purpose of it? And then I know that when it's time, we'll move on to something different. Like
Hmm.
I've really released myself a little bit of the pressure of always making a perfect decision or saying the perfect thing. It's like, so to answer your question, I feel like it's boundaries, and I feel like it's Holy Spirit discernment, and just being authentic,
Hmm. Hmm.
you know?
Hmm. Yeah, no, that's so good. I think, um, it's so funny. I was just having this conversation like the other day. Clearly, I talk a lot because I was having the conversation about boundaries. And, over the last couple of years, with me moving away, moving back, trying to resettle, react, this has literally been one of the toughest seasons probably in my life. And
Hmm.
that's just full transparency. It really was. But people on the outside, it's like, oh, must be nice. Isn't that
Mm,
lovely?
mhm,
Maybe, maybe
mhm,
not, but and a lot of times to your point, I don't even go into the um discussing the struggle of it. Just, it's what it is.
mhm,
Um, but with that, I've learned how to create boundaries because I would actually err on the opposite side of now. I feel like I have to explain to you.
Mm.
everything and almost justify, right? And
Mhm.
so it's like, yeah, we don't need to do that either. And so to your point, just using that, the spirit of God and my own wisdom, right? But one thing that you said that really stuck out to me was your self-awareness of the triggers,
Mhm.
understanding that there is a of a situation that you could find yourself in, and it would trigger and you would be aware,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
then you could intentionally do something different about
Yeah.
it. um,
And
how did you
I
get
think,
there? Yeah.
yeah, I remember I read a book, and the name of it is escaping me right now, but my girlfriend told me about it. What would we do without our girlfriends?
Right,
Um,
that's
but
who I was talking to.
right,
Girlfriend.
right, of course, yeah. But it was the Potter's Field, Master Potter is the name of
Mm,
the book. And I think the author passed, but it's a really interesting book. Anywho, but it's like, the devil is nothing new. He's never, you
right.
know, but he knows where your triggers are,
Hmm.
and he knows how to get you. And I think for me, really spending time with a coach, really sitting down in prayer, and trying to figure out what my triggers are. What are
Hmm.
my soft spots? What are some of my things? And then knowing what the signs are. Like, how
Hmm.
do I know I'm being triggered?
Hmm. Hmm.
When I start to obsess, when I start to feel overly people pleasing with this
Hmm.
person, when I start to feel like I have to be extra um, um, caring, if that makes
Hmm.
sense. Like, I
Hmm.
go into extra caregiving mode, or when I shut down.
Hmm.
I took a personality assessment with one of my coaches about how you manage stress.
Hmm.
And some people get angry, whatever. I shut down. So what I can tell when I'm triggered and I can't do anything, that's another trigger for me. So then I have to come up with, so I'm like, have had to, it's going to be a long process in my life. I feel like we're all a work in progress. So I had to really think about that, just to take care of myself, because,
Hmm.
you know, this self-awareness thing is exhausting in a way. Sometimes I wish I wasn't so much this way and such a deep
It
thinker.
is.
I
No,
guess,
you are right.
yeah, I was talking to my girlfriend this morning, and she's like, "Gosh, it's only 9:30. You're having these deep thoughts already." Gosh, it's like that's just how I am, and I love it. I love deep talks. I love emotional deep talks,
Mhm,
where we
mhm,
can really get into it, and try to help each other through all of this that's happening in our world. And the best way that we can do it is by bringing our whole self to a situation and being authentic and feeling, and yet safe,
mhm.
authentic and safe. That's hard.
Yeah,
It's
absolutely.
really hard
And
to feel authentic and safe.
and I think though, one of the things that I say, you tell me what you think about this, is that I think that there is a practice that we
Mm.
have to just go through. I think that when you've been guarded for so long, right?
Mhm.
Those first experiences are very um difficult. I don't want to say
Mhm.
traumatic, but they're difficult because now you're doing something you've never done before. You've been told that the space is safe, but you don't know that it's safe. You know what I'm
Mhm.
saying? And
Mhm.
but
Mhm.
after a while, you do it, and then you do it again, and then you do it again, and then it's like, okay, I can do this. You build
Mhm.
kind of that practice, that behavior, that habit. Um, and that's one of the things that I've done. But on the flip side of that is that sometimes when you do it, it doesn't always go, right? I thought I was in a safe space. I thought I could say this. I thought I could be authentic. Um, and then it comes back to bite you some sort of way.
Mhm.
How do you have you experienced that? What do you think about this? How
Oh,
do you handle
girl.
that?
Oh, girl, please. Yeah. Um, so
Right.
yeah. So I think I would start here. I think of some of my women friends, back to the competition concept. I can think of some
Mhm,
of my real powerful women friends that are just confident,
mhm,
assertive. They say what needs to be said. They don't think about, it's what needs to be said, and that's what I'm saying, right?
mhm.
And they're not as sensitive and gushy and mushy as I am, right?
Yeah,
And
all day.
yeah,
I'm
and so
so
I
good.
look at them and I think, oh my gosh, what? But then I say, hold on, we all have different roles to play here, right? Because
Right.
I have a sensitivity and can feel a room and have an
Mhm,
empathy that
mhm,
is a gift as well. So
And
I,
they probably need that too, by the way.
right.
They
We
probably
can't have
need
too
that.
many of one of us, right? So we
Yeah,
got to balance each other out. But
exactly.
I have worked at organizations where it was not a safe place in the sense that it was a pretty cutthroat type
Hmm.
culture,
Hmm.
and you'd say things and there'd be a lot of backstabbing, there'd be a lot of sabotaging, a lot of these games that we waste our time playing because it's such a silly thing that we do to each other at work. If I could write another book, it would be about like how to connect surviving, like survival, people who've
Hmm.
actually had to survive, and the behaviors that you have to a workplace,
Hmm.
because I
Hmm.
swear they're really similar,
Hmm. Hmm.
eat or be eaten kind of a mentality.
Absolutely.
So I will say what I did was shut down, and
Hmm.
I wouldn't speak up in meetings anymore, and I
Yeah.
wouldn't say my truth anymore, and I began to become insecure, and I
Yeah.
would question myself. I would, oh
Yeah.
my gosh, I couldn't make a decision. I'd overthink it, and I would overthink my email responses, and it got to the point where I was I look back at it and I can't blame anybody else for it. I let it happen
Hmm.
to myself. And I think that was a good lesson. That was
Yeah.
a really good lesson. Like, how did I let that get that far?
Yeah.
What happened there? I got into that codependent space and that submitting space, and how'd I get there? Let's
Yeah.
not ever let that happen again.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, but what I found is, and this is not the solution, is then you want to shift down
Hmm.
rather than shift up. So you're like, I don't want to feel that anymore. I don't want to
Hmm.
feel that pain anymore. So I want to protect myself
Hmm.
and shift down so that I won't do that anymore.
Hmm.
And that seems like a really good idea, and it feels like a safe thing to do. But then a couple months later, you're like, well, now I'm bored,
Yeah.
and now I'm not challenging myself, and now I've shifted down, and that's not the answer either.
Right.
So back to the concept of a leader, sometimes you have to lead yourself and say,
Hmm.
okay, all right, now what is it that you really want? What is it
Hmm.
that you feel that you are not saying or need to say or want to do? We're our own worst enemy. Oh my
Hmm.
gosh, the thoughts in our mind will hold us back. There's that Marianne Williamson quote.
Yeah.
It's not our
Yeah.
weaknesses, it's our strength that freaks us out. So it's better
Mhm.
to be safe and
Mhm.
hide than to be bold and be all that you can be.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
for me, it's a journey. I haven't gotten there yet. I we've all been in a relationship, whether it's personal or professional, where we've been hurt, and
Absolutely.
it's it's a really PTSD
Yeah.
kind of a vibe
Yeah.
of now you're going to get back out there,
And some of us have been in both personal and professional. So
Right. Right. And we're all bouncing off each other with all this
right.
stuff. And you
Yeah.
wonder how we're all not, I mean, it is not
Yeah.
and I worry about us a little bit in this world that we're living now, in this sitting at home,
Mhm.
staring at each other on these screens. We are social creatures. We need
Yep.
to be together, and we
Yep.
need to have relationships with each other. And it scares me a little bit of how we're taking care of each other in this world,
Yeah.
So we have to be kind to each other and know that we're all bouncing off our some of our baggage.
Yeah. Absolutely. One of the things that I said, I've taught like high schoolers, like juniors and seniors in high school, and I did this training for them. And one of the things as I was preparing for it, as a matter of fact, I think I just did this for women. I said, there are stats that talk about cutting, skipping school, and just a lack of self-care, self-abuse of
Mhm.
teenagers at 14, 15, 16, 17. And
Mhm.
my premise is, do you know what happens to these young women? They grow up to be adults. These people grow up to be your colleagues. These people grow up to be your managers. These people grow up to
Mhm.
be your co-workers. And if they never dealt with it,
Mhm.
that's what you're seeing in the workplace. And so we have to get to the point where we recognize
Mhm.
that we're bouncing off of each other's baggage and we better deal with it.
Yes.
We
And you
got to
got to,
do it.
just like that little Snoodles tale, you got to
Yeah.
know what's in your bag,
Yeah.
like, so I think sometimes when I think about organizational development and I think about, remember back in the day when you take those skill pass seminars about like how to deal with difficult people for
Mhm.
$99 and all these
Yeah.
things, it's like, okay, I feel like that whole world now is shifting. And
Yeah.
now what are we like, how do we cope? How
Mhm.
do we treat each other with kindness? How do we allow all voices to be heard? How do we let
Mhm.
everybody have a space? And I feel like we're all really understanding what our I can't think of the word, but just what all of our different experiences are.
Mhm.
And it's a workplace. I don't need to know about all of your stuff, but
Mhm.
I also need to know that you have stuff.
Mhm.
You
Mhm.
know, so go easy on us. Let's
Mhm.
all go easy on each other a little bit. But
Absolutely.
that's my
Absolutely.
high feeling empathy. You know, if I'm talking to a CFO, he'd be like, "What?"
Yep.
So,
Well, yeah.
you
And
know.
so it's so funny. I did a disc behavior with some leaders, and one of them, his natural personality was very much a high I, like the social guy.
Mhm.
But um how he shows up in the workplace was very much a uh the conscientious.
Mm.
He's very much a conscientious. And I said, do you do something with numbers? Like, why is it so different, right? They're diagonal on the scale. And he was the CFO. And
Mm.
so how he shows up is completely different from who he really is. But the key is you have to know it and you have to be okay with it. And
Mhm.
sometimes um, people don't know why they're not happy in a job because
Mhm.
it doesn't align, and they don't know it. They picked the wrong job, and you know you can overextend on one side, but you have to just be okay with that. And if not, you create the tension within
Oh my
yourself.
gosh. And haven't we all been there? When
Yeah.
like when you said alignment, I love that word so much because I have felt in the zone in the oh, I can't remember the other word, but when I feel aligned, I know it.
Yeah.
I know it.
Yes.
I look good, I feel good, I'm happy, I'm confident, and
Yeah.
when I'm not, I'm not. And
Yeah.
you can't force it.
Yep.
When you are misaligned, you can't make it. You can't
Yep.
force it. You can't be like, well, at least I think there's a lot of people right now that have been through a lot of trauma with their work the last 2 years.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
been hard on a lot of us, and for many reasons, leaders and everybody's. It has not been fun,
Yeah.
and we've come out of it, and we're all funky, I think. And now we're like, okay, well, now what?
That's exactly it. Now what do we do? And you think about all the chaos that happens in the workplace on a Monday, right? Just because it
Mhm.
is. And
Mhm.
then you tack on COVID, you tack on the economic downturn, and then you tack on the social justice issues, and people still have to get up and perform like nothing happened, quote unquote. It's pretty impossible to do.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
so what are we doing about that? How do we manage that?
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah.
and, and those are the questions that we're still toiling with. And right now it's trial and error. And that's why I always say we have to offer ourselves so much grace
Yes.
because we don't know what the right answer is. This is
Mhm.
new to us, right?
Right.
We've not experienced this before.
Mhm.
Um, and so
We're going through a spiritual change, I feel like.
yes.
I went to a class one time at Alverno, and there was like a Buddhist nun or something like that, and she was talking about how this was a few years ago, and she was saying there's a change coming,
Yeah,
and it's going to feel really difficult, and it's going to feel really bad, but it's going to come out, and we're going to be such a better people for it. And I'm holding on to
absolutely. Absolutely.
that sentence because it feels funky. And for those
Mhm.
of us who are high empaths, we can feel the funk. I can
Yep.
feel it, and we carry it with us.
Yep.
And then, if you're, this is, I'm being a little bit jokey, but if you're an insecure empath, you tend to think something's funky and it's probably my fault, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
So
Yeah,
we
you
have to
own
work.
it. Yep.
Yeah, we can't do that. We have to make sure we're not picking it up.
Right.
But um, there is beauty through this darkness that we're going through, and the fact, I think that those of us who are vulnerable and authentic and truth tellers
Mhm.
are going to be the leaders through this, and the
Mhm.
ones who are brave enough to speak the truth
Yep.
are the ones who are going to take it through. And it's not easy to do, and I'm so proud of so many of my friends who are so active in the diversity and inclusion space, who are leading us and putting themselves out there. And the organization I work for has a lot of really great business resources groups where people are coming
Mhm,
together and sharing
mhm.
the trauma, sharing things that are going on. I've learned so much. I have so much more to learn, and I feel like such a richer person because of it.
Yeah.
But we have so much. It's such an exciting time in so many ways.
Yeah, yeah.
You know,
Oh my God, you're so right. And it's so funny that you called out, your friends and those that you are working with that are taking the lead. I think for me, one of the biggest call outs, and not a negative, but really positive, is how the companies and organizations are stepping up to it.
yes.
I think that um, as leaders, and one of the things that I've been studying and learning is that now um, the businesses are not just about the business. Now they have to take moral stances as well to the things that are happening in our community, and they're doing just that. So it sounds amazing that your company is doing that, and they're on that. They're doing that.
Yeah, and everything's shifting. I feel like
Mhm,
everything is
mhm,
shifting, and the things that were normal and the things that were allowed aren't anymore. And I don't
mhm,
think people know how to act sometimes. I think
mhm.
I just look at the behaviors of people, and I'm like, wow, that is not going to fly anymore.
Yeah, yeah,
You can't treat people like that. You can't lead people like that. So
yeah.
everything is shifting, and shifting hurts.
Mhm, mhm.
And as a leader within, I think we're all, it's the funky shift.
Mhm, mhm.
We could
You
come
know
up with
what?
a dance. Let's come up with a funky shift dance. I'll work
Absolutely.
on. I'll take it as an action item from this.
There you go. Make a note. One of the things that you said, though, is that you've come to the realization that leadership is not a title.
hmm
How would you define leadership?
I would define leadership as being willing to um, step aside for the spotlight to let the light shine in others.
Mm,
And I think that doesn't mean dimming your light. It
right.
just means stepping aside and allowing others and having the confidence in yourself to
Hmm.
see the greatness in others and lift other people up higher.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
I love doing that personally.
Hmm.
I love encouraging is absolutely my spiritual gift, and I love doing that to people, with not two people, four people, um, sometimes two of them, whether they like it
Hmm.
or not.
Hmm.
But I think that's what leadership is, and it's pushing people into their light.
Hmm. Hmm. Absolutely. And I love that because when I think of that, when I hear you say that, that's basically if if you're a light and I'm a light, if we get together, just imagine the brighter light, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that is
Mm-hmm.
what we should be doing. That
Mm-hmm.
is how we should be
Yeah.
doing it.
Okay,
In
check
my
this
opinion.
out. Look at this. Look at what I just came up with. So we have those LED lights.
Hmm.
So it's like leaders encourage and make a difference.
Yeah, yeah.
Because that's what we're doing. So
LED, leaders and
yeah.
differences. Yep,
And
absolutely.
so I see that within you.
Hmm. Thank you.
I see you making a difference. I see you bringing this people together and raising people up, and through your foundation and all the great work that you're doing, you're making a difference in the community and in your family and in your friends, who I'm blessed to be one of, and you're making that difference and encouraging others. And that's what we're here for. I hope that when I arrive in heaven and I await for people, there's a whole bunch of people that I have made a difference in their life. To
Impacted.
me, like,
Yeah.
what is better than that?
Yeah, yeah. Well, you definitely are having an impact. There's no doubt about that. But I do, as we prepare to wrap up, I do want to ask you two more questions. And the
Yeah.
first question is, um, what would you tell, knowing everything that you know now, what would you tell the younger generation?
Ugh. Well, I would say sorry, first of all, because they've sure got their hands full with a lot of the mess to clean up that we have made.
Mm,
Um, I would say, get off your phone.
mm,
That's what I would say, because we're getting too, and I'm on my phone constantly, but we are just getting a little bit distracted by things that don't matter.
Hmm. Hmm.
And I feel like that's one of the devil's top priorities, is to
Hmm.
distract us
Hmm.
into
Hmm.
dumb stuff. So put your phone off and go give somebody a hug.
So great. This is so funny. I just did a post on social media like Saturday saying that we put our lives in the responsibility. We make other people accountable for our lives. But really
Mm,
what happened, we were going to the grocery store and we were just driving down, within the strip mall, a little thing, and somebody was walking across the street. They did not look up, not one time. Like
mhm,
you don't know if a car is coming, you don't know what's happening around you, but his
mhm.
face was literally like this
Uh-huh.
in his phone. And I'm like, you are making somebody else responsible, because if someone else was not paying attention like you were, you
Mhm.
would be dead or you would be
Yeah.
sitting on top of somebody's car.
Yeah.
So just
Yes, we've all been in that conversation, and it happens. You have to have your
yeah,
phone by you if something happens, but you can so easily
get
lean
stuck.
over and you know
Yeah,
and we need connection, and we need focus with each other, to
absolutely.
see me, look
Yes,
me in the eye and see me.
yes, 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 yes.
A lot of
So
loneliness.
I'm so glad you shared that. Thank you. And then
Mhm.
I guess my last question for you is really what's next? What else you got going?
Oh, well, um, I feel like clarity is next for me.
Mm,
I feel like I've been doing some healing and some cleansing, has
mhm,
kind of been the theme for me for the past year. And now I'm entering into a state of clarity.
mhm,
My sweet baby girl is going to college, so I'm going to have
mhm,
two college students. So it's a shift time for me,
mhm,
a little funky shift, but
mhm,
hopefully a happy shift. Um, and now it's just what now? So I'm really great at having all these great ideas of what I want to do, but I want some clarity.
mhm,
I want to finish my book
mhm,
and really just think about what's my impact for the next 20 years,
mhm. Well, that
God
is,
willing.
yeah. But I love that because I believe that we are all vessels. And so when you say what's my impact, you're saying it in terms of not for me, but how will
Hmm.
I be a vessel for the world and the community that I live in? And I think that that's pivotal. Not that you asked, but those are the things that make me happy. This is the
Yay.
reason why we're friends. We love each
That's right.
other because you are
I
just
know.
amazing.
Yeah, this
You
podcast is 12 hours. Sorry, everybody.
right. But this is so good. Well, I thank you so, so, so much for taking time out and hanging with us for a little while. I am
Oh, it's
just
my
so honored.
pleasure.
I cannot wait, Erica, for us to get this posted and socialized because it's going to be life changing for somebody,
Oh, well,
as it's already been for me. So, we're on top of it.
right back at you. Thank you
So,
for being such a light in my life.
no, thank you. I'm going to stop the